Hi, this is George Emmerich, the Athletic Director for the Watertown City School District. This is a mandatory video that all families of students that want to play sports need to watch before participating in sports this school year. If you watch it once, that'll be fine. That'll cover the fall, the winter, and the spring season. I'll know that you watched it because at the end of the video, you'll have a short survey to do. When you do the survey, it'll record your name and the time you watched it. The couple of things that I want to go over are the team behavioral standards, which is the code of conduct, and also I want to talk about rules for attending games and contests. In the code of conduct, the first thing that it talks about is citizenship in schools. Sports are a privilege. In exchange for the privilege of playing a sport, you need to be first and foremost a good citizen in the school. You need to make sure that you don't do anything in the classroom or in the hallway that's going to get you suspended. If you're in school restriction for a half a day or out-of-school suspension, you'll be restricted from playing in practices or games on those days that you're suspended. Please follow the rules of the classroom teacher. Please follow the rules and the student code of conduct for the building. Please be a good citizen in your school. Students who are athletes should always lead by example. You shouldn't be bullying other students, you shouldn't be name calling, you shouldn't be making inappropriate gestures or using foul language in the building at any time. Sportsmanship. The same goes for on the field. When you're on the field, you should be an outstanding example of a good sport. This goes for coaches as well and administrators and any parents attending games. We ask athletes don't do any trash talking, don't use any foul language, don't be disrespectful. This goes for the time you're at practice or for the time you're playing in a game. If you are a bad sport in a game, you could face game suspensions. Hazing. Hazing happens when members of a team cause other members of a team to do something to be part of that team. And if hazing is going on, the students that are doing the hazing can face up to 25% of their season suspended. With this rule and anything else in our code of conduct, if we have evidence that's on social media, photographic evidence, any other kind of evidence, we will use that. So students should be aware that they shouldn't be posting anything like that anyways. Alcohol, tobacco, illegal drugs, prescription drugs, and vaping. If you're using any of these drugs, if you're abusing prescription drugs, it's okay to use a prescription drug, you just can't abuse it, you'll be suspended for the team. You're going to sign a contract that talks about that at your first practice. Academics. You're a student athlete. You're a student first. You need to make sure that you're passing your classes. If you're failing more than 2 classes, you'll be suspended for the team. Grades are run every 5 weeks. There's no other time grades are run. So if we run the grades, it's a snapshot of that time period. If you're failing more than 2 classes when grades are run, you cannot be allowed to come back on a team until grades are run the next time. So that'll be 5 weeks. Your suspension includes attendance at practice and attendance at games. You're not allowed to come to a practice. You're not allowed to come to a game if you're suspended. When you're suspended, you're supposed to be home working on improving your grades. If you get your grades up the next week, that's all well and good, but we don't check them again until the 5-week period. So to avoid a 5-week suspension from your team, please keep your grades up. There were some students that were failing at the end of last school year. If those students were failing 2 or more classes at the end of last school year, you'll be allowed to play, but your playing time will be probationary. So if you're failing at the end of 3 weeks, you will be suspended until grades are run again, which will be the 5-week point and then the 10-week point and then so on. So please make sure that you work hard in the classroom and you keep your grades up. You need to be an outstanding example of a good student, a good citizen in the building. You need to be a good citizen on the field. You need to keep your grades up in the classroom. Students who face any kind of outside of the building criminal charges, if you're defacing school property, things like that, you could be suspended for the team. Other rules, we talk about the uniforms and equipment that you borrow for the season. they're borrowed from the school. They're property of the school. You're responsible for them. You need to make sure you take good care of them. You don't lose them. Nothing happens to them during the season. If you start a season and you decide before the first game that that sport is not for you, you can quit that sport and there'll be no harm, no foul. But if you start playing a sport and you come to practice and your team is depending on you and you just decide you want to stop playing, you can do that, but you'll face the consequence of not being able to play the next season. If you make a commitment to the team and you're part of the team and they start playing games, you need to make sure you decide you stick with the team and you commit to the rest of the team, that you'll be there and commit to the coach. You'll attend the practices and you'll be with the team throughout the end of the season, which includes playoffs and sectionals should the team advance. You need to follow any team rules set by the coach. The coach's rules can be more restrictive than these rules. You need to make sure by this time now you should have completed all your paperwork to be part of the team. And last, students need to be supervised when they're in a facility in the district. There's no time when you should be in a building or in a locker room or any place in the district when your coach is not there. Sometimes we have teams practice at Knickerbocker. They shouldn't be in the locker rooms at Knickerbocker before the coaches show up. You shouldn't be at North Elementary if you get bussed over there for a basketball practice or what have you. You shouldn't be running around that building. If your coach is going to meet you there, they'll set a designated spot and you should be at that spot in the lobby or wherever that coach says. He or she will meet you there at that time. At no time should you be in a locker room, in a gym shooting, in the weight room lifting weights, unsupervised. You always need to be supervised, and that's on you. You know that. So you've signed this code of conduct. You understand it. If you have any questions, you can always call my office. The other quick thing that I want to talk about is the rules for attending games. All students that attend games in grades K through 8 must be accompanied by a parent or a guardian to the game. If students in grade K to 8 are asked to sit with their parents, we please ask you to do this. Sometimes there's situations where younger students are running around. We don't want anybody getting hurt. We don't want younger students playing at a soccer game or a lacrosse game or a football game outside our turf with a hard ball. We don't want you throwing a baseball around or a lacrosse ball that might hit somebody. If you're doing that, we might ask you to go into the open field and throw the ball around over there so no spectators get hit with a baseball or a lacrosse ball or a football. If you're not watching the game, then you can go to the field and throw the ball around and nobody will get hurt. Anytime you're at a game, you should have your school ID with you. Sometimes we ask to check that. Once you leave the field or a building, if you leave a football game and you go out in the parking lot, you will not be allowed to re-enter the game. Once you leave, you need to stay away from the game. You will not be allowed re-entry. Anyone on the premises doing anything that they should not be doing, smoking any tobacco products, using any alcohol or anything else, will be asked to leave and will face further consequences. Anyone at a game that's acting unsportsmanlike will be asked to leave. At no time should you be addressing the members of our team or any other team out in the field and saying anything derogatory directed at them. We don't allow this for our players. We don't allow trash talking. You should not be yelling or saying anything derogatory towards an official. If you're doing that, you'll be asked to leave. So you've watched the video. If you have any questions, like I said, you can call my office, 315-785-3833. Do the short survey at the end so I know that your family watched it. You only have to watch this one time this year. If you watched it and your child's playing a fall, winter, and spring sport, you're all set. All right? Thanks very much.